was out at the University of Denver, doing a talk very similar to this, about my work and about the Beat generation, and about that. And I was with David Amram, who was very much today. David, by the way, was a good friend of Kerouac and Ginsberg and all those guys, and he was the one who would play music, either on the piano or on some French horn, while Kerouac and Ginsberg would read their poetry. And they did this at the 10th Street Galleries back in the 50s during the abstract expressionist days. On 10th Street, right off 4th Avenue, there was a whole block of little galleries that showed the first abstract expressionist work. And the artists all hung out at the Cedar Bar and at McSorley's, not McSorley's yet, no, the Cedar Bar and these other little Bleecker Street cafes. And Amram and the beat poets and the abstract painters were all together there. And what people didn't realize, and I didn't either, but in about 1990, I got a phone call from Kerouac's brother-in-law, John Sampis, who was the executor of the estate, and he lives in Lowell. And he said, Ed, he says, I have about 300 paintings here in the house, in the closet, under the bed, in the attic, that Jack Kerouac did. And he says, I think they're good. He said, could you take a look at them? And I went up there and I saw him, and it was, you know, whoa, that's really something. And then I found out, I was telling Alan about it. Alan said, well, I have 20,000 photographs that are printed, 16 by 20, and, you know, in the file cabinets, put away. And he said, and Gregory Corso paints all the time, and whenever when Gregory ran out of money, he would do a watercolor, and he would sell it to his publisher, who would, you know, it was a way of giving him money, rather than lending. There was no point in lending him money because then you'd create an enemy. But he would sell it for $500, $1,000. So Gregory had produced a nice little body of interesting work. And then Ferlinghetti, it turns out, that was painting he was painting full time. He was hardly writing anymore. He had he still has a big studio out in San Francisco. And then William Burroughs, who we haven't mentioned yet, who was certainly part of this little group. William Burroughs, who was famous, I mean, he's famous for Naked Lunch and some other books that he wrote that are big favorites among the students, by the way. But he had shot his wife back in the 50s. They were at a party and they were drunk and stoned, and they were down in Mexico, and he always carried a gun. He loved guns. And he took a shot glass and put it on top of his wife's head, and she stood against the wall, and he went across the room, and he took his pistol out, and he shot her right between the eyes and killed her. And this, he never went to jail for it because they would, you know, it was a joke. And she was very much part of it. But it enhanced his reputation as a completely weird character. Burroughs became a painter, but how did Burroughs paint? Burroughs took a big wooden board. Sometimes he would put a collage on it, sometimes not. Put it 30, 40 feet down in the back of the house, get his shotgun. He would take 2 or 3 cans of paint, you know, red, white, blue, stack them up in front of the wooden board, and he would shoot the cans of paint. And they would splatter onto the board, and Burroughs was a painter.